Good evening, and thank you for coming tonight. We're going to get the Sharonville City Council meeting underway. If everyone will please stand, we're going to have a moment of silent prayer, and then we're going to be doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to lead you in both. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You can all be seated now. Roll call.
Mr. Tankersley,
Here.
Mr. Wilson,
Here.
Mr. Coulter,
Here.
Mr. Lovett,
Here.
Mr. Cook,
Here.
Mrs. Knight. Here. Mr. Schmidt,
Here.
and Ed Cunningham is absent with notice tonight.
Thank you. Approval of minutes from our January 11th regular council meeting. Were there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, those stand as written and distributed. Reports and communication. Mayor Hardman.
So just want to give thanks to all of our employees that were out working hard on our new waterfront properties along Creek Road. So obviously, I'm sure you have all heard, there was a bit of a water main break down in our downtown Sharonville area. Some of you are a little closer and more intimately familiar with it than others. So we've been working with Waterworks to fix that situation as quickly as they can. Hopefully we'll have that road open sooner rather than later, but it's going to take some time and get things back to normal. So other than that, I think everything else will be taken care of through all these fine folks that are here tonight and Jim. So I have nothing else to add unless anybody has any questions for me.
Any questions?
You were not. You've been, no,
Just, that's on record too. See no questions for the mayor. We'll move on to our safety service director, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you.
Very important.
Just one item before we get into the legislation this evening. Survey work began this week, or is planned to begin this week, regarding our safe routes to school work near Sharonville Elementary and Evendale Elementary. Individual letters went out to the immediate vicinity, so those property owners know of the survey work, but also wanted to mention it publicly as well. Going into the legislation this evening, Ordinance 2022-05E deals with a matter that was discussed in the budget, but basically the 2022 street repair program, curb and sidewalk program, and street preventative maintenance program. Steve's in the audience this evening if anybody has any questions, or if Steve, if you want to add any details to this, go ahead.
Good evening. The street repair and street maintenance, or the curb and sidewalk and street maintenance programs are going to be very similar to years past. It's areas of curbs and sidewalk that have been designated as in poor repair that will get fixed. We'll do some road painting, street line painting, and some crack seal on the preventative maintenance program. The 22 larger street repair program, we're diving in feet first with our more commercial streets. So it's a large project this year. We've done a really good job in years past of our residential streets, and we're going to get into more of our commercial streets this year with this program. So, any questions?
Thank you very much.
Steve, you could stay there and talk about 2022-06E regarding the garage doors.
Yeah, this contract would just be this ordinance is just on a contract to replace the remaining 6 garage doors on the Public Works garage. We did half of them last year. We're doing the rest of them this year. So they're in disrepair. So if there's any questions.
No, thank you.
Right.
Ordinance 2022-0 at the last council. Underman's here this evening. The union contract.
As Mr. Lucas said, this is
was to all parties. So very good. Thank you.
Chief, ordinance 2022-09E.
This is 2013 Ford Expedition that was noted by Rick at the City Garage to have wanting to replace that. When we replace that, there's emergency light.
Questions on that?
Ordinance 2022
This ordinance appropriates the leftover unencumbered funds that are in 607, kind of what's left over of our bond proceeds that we issued late last November, received in December, after we put in the POs for the contract amounts of the convention center expansion. So there's a contingency in there of about $800,000 that is represents 5%. And there's another bid package out there that is just still yet to be awarded. That's several $100,000. And then there is kind of a remainder that's left in there where we're able to, with those bond proceeds, have a little larger contingency. If not needed for change orders or unforeseen circumstances, we'll be able to elect to do a few extra things that I know they would like to add to the project if affordable. Otherwise, it will roll over to the 608 debt retirement fund at the end of the project when it's all said and done. So, any questions about that one?
Thank you.
Scott, do you want to talk about the voice vote?
Yeah, there's also a voice vote related to ordinance 2021-76E, I think. I'm going off of my head for that one, but
It is.
yeah. So this is to correct the year in the title. Casey actually brought this to our attention last week, kind of going back and looking at some example ordinances, and he noticed the discrepancy between section 1 of the ordinance, which referred to 2022. This is our 2022 budget, is what that ordinance is. In the title, there was kind of a Scrivener error on my part when drafting that, and I put 2021. So the body of the ordinance said 2022. We introduced it that evening as 2022. So before we go and distribute this ordinance to County Budget Commission and other outside parties, we wanted to kind of document that we knew what it was. It's 2022. So this voice vote will recognize that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And ordinance 2022-08E deals with an incentive, tax incentive for workforce technologies. Back in late October, early November, we started discussing potential incentives with workforce representatives, and they will be locating in Park 42 with about 59,000 square feet of space, 25,000 of that being warehoused. The proposal is a 3-year, 35% income tax reimbursement. They'll be bringing 110 employees. More financial information is in your cover memo. Stan March, their Vice President of Communications and Government Affairs, is here this evening to talk a little bit about the company and provide a little bit more details about their move.
Thank you, Jim. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, I'm Stan March. I'm the Vice President of Corporate Development, Public Affairs, and Communications for Workhorse Group. Workhorse Group is a Midwest-based last-mile delivery original equipment manufacturer. We've been based for the last several years in Loveland, and we've simply outgrown our facility. We own a building in Loveland as a company, but we have our corporate staff split. We have our advanced technology group split, and we were seeking opportunities in the greater Cincinnati area. So researched a number of opportunities and found a really fantastic space where we can consolidate all of our all of our folks that are currently in Loveland over here to Park 42. The incentives were an important part of our decision-making process, and we're really looking forward to April when we get everybody under one roof. It's a nice facility. It provides a modern setting with an appropriate air for the type of manufacturing company we are. So we're really excited about the opportunity for the space and appreciate your consideration for the incentive.
Great. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
That's it for the legislation this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Lucas this evening? Seeing none, we'll move forward. I don't have a report this evening, so we'll go ahead and move to our Clerk of Council, Ms. Buhite.
Thanks. I just wanted to announce that there's a public hearing on February 22nd at 7 o'clock regarding the rezoning of East Business Way.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to our treasurer, Mr. Irie.
There we go. And I'll be covering a little bit for Ed tonight, too. So we had one significant transfer at the end of 2021. We had $4.1 million go from the general fund to the 401 capital fund. That gives the capital fund a balance of $6.6 million. That was right at the end of the year. Also, as you all probably saw, we had some good numbers come in at the end of the year on the tax reports. Our 2021 number, the tax revenue was up 11.86%, which is well above 2020 and actually exceeded 2019 numbers by 6.54%, as well as the motel tax was up 20.20%. So those are all really, really good signs, good numbers. You also may have seen that we had a significant jump in our balance of our investments with Red Tree Investments, and that happens to be the bond proceeds, which Mr. McKeon put in the Red Tree Investments. So we had about $18 million in jump in the investments there, and that was the reason for that. So that's the bond proceeds, so we're collecting interest on that. So that's my report.
Great. All right. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We'll go on to our law director, Mr. Lippert.
Thank you. No report,
Okay.
unless anybody has questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. At this point, it's time for residents that wish to be heard this evening. If you would like to come up and give us your name and address, we'd love to hear from you.
Jim Schmidt, 12215 Pickwick Place. I just want to make the comment, I know we haven't had a large amount of snowfall. We've had the 2, and I just want to compliment the men and women that take care of cleaning the streets and maintaining the streets. And I know they won the rodeo,
Yes.
snowplow rodeo, and obviously they do a very good job, and I just want to thank them. I hope I don't have to come back and thank them for taking care of a larger snowfall, but I will.
And their manager's hoping you don't either, so. Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to be heard this evening? We'll move on to our council committees. Community Development, Mr. Wilson.
All right. The Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Committee will meet on February the 10th. John Creech submitted the report from the January meeting, and Mr. Tankersley attended that meeting. Do you have anything you want to add to that? No. All right.
Everything was going good.
Great. Thank you both, gentlemen. Community Services, Mr. Lovett.
Our next meeting is Wednesday, February 2nd at, time to meet, 4 o'clock in the meeting room. Other than that, I have no report.
Okay, thank you. Budget and Finance, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. No report, but I will be sending out meeting requests to the committee here this week. And then for project oversight, no report also, but I will also be sending out our quarterly meeting requests. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Honored citizens, Mrs. Knight.
Tonight I'm honoring the Public Works Department. It's already been mentioned several times. But I want to thank them for their prompt service on our snow removal on Sunday the 16th and 17th, and also helping Waterworks with the Creek Road Lake in front of St. Mike's. Thank you.
Thank Thank you, perfect. Law and Public Safety, Mr. Schmidt.
Thank you. The next Law and Public Safety Committee meeting will be on Tuesday, February 1st at 4 o'clock in the Administrative Conference Room. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Rule suspension motion. First and only reading with immediate effectivity for ordinances 2022-01E, 2022-07, 2022-08E, and 2022-09E. Second and third readings with immediate effectivity will be ordinance 2022-05E and 2022-06E. Is there a motion? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mr. Lovett. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
All those opposed, no. And our rule suspension motion does carry. We'll move on to unfinished business.
Okay. This is a first and only reading of Emergency Ordinance 2022-01E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract which the Council of Sharonville hereby approves, approving the collective bargaining agreement with Sharonville Fire Department Union, IAFF 4498, for calendar years beginning 2020 through calendar year 2022 and declaring an emergency.
Are you doing new business?
Oh.
It's okay, we can do new
That's
business.
right, I put that under old.
You're fine. We'll do it. Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-01E? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency Ordinance 2022-01E has been approved. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay, now I'll go back to unfinished. I just saw 01 and I went with it. Okay. This is a second and third reading of Emergency Ordinance 2022-05E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into contracts for the 2022 Street Repair Program, 2022 Curb and Sidewalk Program, and 2022 Street Preventative Maintenance Program, and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-05E? So moved by Mr. Cook, second by Mr. Lovett. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency Ordinance 2022-05 has been approved. Second and third reading of Emergency Ordinance 2022-06E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract for the replacement of the Public Works garage door and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-06E? So moved by Mr. Coulter, second by Mrs. Knight. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt? Emergency Ordinance 2022-06E has been approved.
New business, please.
Sure, I can do that. First and only reading of 2022-07, amending 2022 appropriations for the 607 Convention Center Expansion Fund.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance 2022-07? So moved by Mr. Cook, second by Mr. Schmidt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-07 has been approved. First and only reading of Emergency Ordinance 2022-08E, authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into an Economic Development Incentive Agreement with Workhorse Technologies and declaring an emergency.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-08E? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Schmidt. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Emergency ordinance 2022-08E has been approved.
Officially welcome to the neighborhood.
Emergency ordinance 2022-09E, authorizing the safety service director. This is the first and only reading of emergency ordinance 2022-09E, authorizing the safety service director to enter into a contract for the purchase and subsequent conversion of a new Ford Expedition for the Sharonville Fire Department.
Is there a motion to pass ordinance 2022-09E? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mr. Tankersley. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mr. Tankersley?
Yes.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Coulter?
Yes.
Mr. Lovett?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mrs. Knight?
Yes.
And Mr. Schmidt. Emergency ordinance 2022-09E has been approved. First reading only of ordinance 2022-10, rezoning property located along the north side of E-Business Way, a portion of the auditor parcel number 608-0033-0055, from general business to public facilities.
And we've been asked to do a voice vote correcting the title of ordinance 2021-76E to reflect the year ending date of 2022. Is there a motion? So moved by Mr. Wilson, second by Mr. Lovett. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no, and that motion does carry. One opportunity again for residents to be heard this evening. Are there any other matters to be heard before council this evening? Mrs. Knight?
Yes, I had a couple people ask me when the pie shop's going to open. Are they going to open full-time? Are they going to open part-time?
That is the million-dollar question. Mr.
Yeah,
Lucas?
we've reached out but haven't heard back yet.
Okay.
Okay, I just, some people want to know when to go down and get, they had the little pies once and they want to go back, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that they are on the web, and they will take your pre-orders, and they'll deliver them down there to you, or I do believe you can even go to their location and pick them up at some point, too. But definitely on Fridays, they were delivering them down there, so pre-order right now is the way to go. Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, I would just like to commend Mr. Coulter on the excellent job he did making a motion tonight, getting us those garage doors. I don't think he'll ever forget. I don't think any of us will ever forget that.
I thought it was priceless.
He did. He was really good.
Yeah.
Quick. Yeah, absolutely.
Right there with his
Very decisive.
pen up. Yes.
Very decisive.
Garage doors are very important for the city, so
Very,
that's
very,
my position.
Very important. Very good. Anybody else? Seeing none, is there a motion for adjournment? So moved by Mr. Tankersley, second by Mr. Wilson. All those in favor, yes?
Yes.
Those opposed, no. And we do stand adjourned. Thank you.